There's the Climate Equity Fund, which is also doing this work that Jamie's just been talking about. Tell us about that, and tell us about any impacts that you've seen to date, particularly as they relate to gender, if this is similar to you.
Yeah. So once upon a time, 2 years ago, me and a colleague at General Motors, Jessica James, reached out to our chief communications officer, and we said that we would want you to reach out to the board and request for equitable climate action funding. That means that we want to have this active understanding that when it comes to climate change, there is a level of differential vulnerability. That means that not all communities, not all genders are affected equally when it comes to climate change. And we can see the example of that in Pakistan, right? While we're having this amazing conference in New York and this great climate week in New York, which is fantastic, there is some 1,100 plus people dead in the country. 1/3 of the country is underwater. 33 million climate refugees exist. And this is a country which is just 1% emitter of CO2 in the world. So we can really see live right now in front of our eyes that there is differential vulnerability when it comes to climate change. So at General Motors specifically, Miranda, we sort of had that conversation early on when I took that role and work with my colleagues to how do we bring that thinking into how we are strategizing around all the things that we do in the company. So we launched what we call the Equitable Climate Action. The Equitable Climate Action, we focus on 4 specific areas. The first is workforce transition or future of work. So how do we make sure as the company makes a transition from ICE vehicles to EV vehicles, how do we make sure that we are taking the workforce along? The other part of the second pillar of equitable climate action is EV access. So making sure that we're not just making electric vehicles that are just for bros and dudes. We are making EV vehicles that are affordable at all price points, all genders, whatever gender you identify with, you can access. We also have a strong focus on infrastructure equity. We know that again, the highest income households or the highest income neighborhood would have the highest number of EV chargers compared to multi-dwelling households or low-income neighborhoods. So infrastructure equity is another part of it. And the fourth pillar, which I think is the most important pillar, because that's when we get to work with a number of grassroots organizations across the US and the world, which is a climate equity fund, which is a $50 million climate equity fund that's going directly into the grassroots organizations that are working towards workforce training, that are working towards gender equity, that are working towards making sure that the communities that are impacted by climate change get the benefit of the funding to get ready to build climate resiliency and climate adaptation. So I would say that equitable climate action really, and the point that I made earlier, that communication is no more just about here is a press release and here is a talking point, but really we can go back and to the company and to the CEO and inform, we need to think about this from an equity lens, let's do it, and can have internal buy-in and advocacy.
That's extraordinary. Thank you for sharing. Well, we've now gotten to the point of addressing what we want to see in the future. And we'll do that relatively quickly to give all of you a chance to ask questions of these extraordinary human beings. First, Jamie, I want to